Greetings, travelers between worlds. Tell me, how are you today, and from which corner of this earth do you hear my voice? In today's video, we will speak of the unseen forces that shape human destiny and of how the soul crosses between timelines. What if your life at this very moment is flowing along a false river of time, pulling you away from your true shore? Did you know that the ancient mystics believed a single sign could tear the fabric of ordinary reality and carry you into another, yet unlived fate? Allow me to tell you how this path, leading beyond the boundaries of the mind, began. In a cramped antique shop, where dust danced in beams of dim light, an old book without a cover rested on a wooden shelf. Its pages, yellowed by time, held the silence of centuries, their edges worn as if touched by invisible readers. The air was thick, saturated with the scent of ancient parchment and forgotten stories. The book, devoid of an author's name, seemed to wait for its moment, hidden among the chaos of aged relics. Suddenly, without a touch, its pages stirred, opening to a random line, as if moved by an unseen will. The words on the page burned with a strange power. They did not merely form sentences, they whispered, piercing the depths of consciousness like an ancient hymn addressed to the soul. You, walking the path of time, pause. Your way is but a shadow of truth. Each word struck the heart like a hammer, awakening a vague sense of recognition. The air grew heavier, as if someone unseen watched from the shadows, waiting. This was not mere reading. It was a call, impossible to ignore. The heart responded with a quickened rhythm, while the mind struggled to grasp the meaning, slipping away like smoke. The book was unlike ordinary texts. Its lines twisted like serpents, weaving symbols and images that felt both foreign and familiar. They spoke of timelines, of worlds where every soul chooses its fate, of signs that invisibly guide toward truth. Each sentence was a key, unlocking doors to the incomprehensible. Reading further was impossible. The words demanded not just eyes, but the full surrender of the soul. They beckoned, leading deeper, to a place where reason loses power and intuition becomes the only guide. Outside the shop, the world continued its motion. Somewhere beyond the window, voices of passers-by rang out, floorboards creaked, but within, all stood still. The book, opening on its own, created a space where time flowed differently. This was the moment when eternity touched the present, leaving a mark on the heart. The sense of being watched grew stronger. An unseen gaze seemed to pierce the space, assessing whether the reader was ready to receive the message. This was no coincidence. It was the first sign, the first step on a path impossible to predict, yet instantly recognized by the soul. The words from the book lingered in the mind, even after the pages closed. They refused to let go, clinging to thoughts like the echo of a distant voice. Seek the signs, they are already around you. It was not a command, but a warning, imbued with sacred force. Leaving the shop meant stepping away from the familiar world, yet returning to the old ways was no longer possible. Something within had changed forever. Reality, once so familiar, began to crack at the seams, revealing a glimpse of light from another fate. The world outside the shop now seemed different. Streets, people, sounds, all became part of a pattern the book had begun to weave. Each step resonated in the chest with a strange warmth, as if the soul already knew where to go. It was not reason, not logic, but something deeper, a memory living beyond time. The book remained on the shelf, but its message went with the one who read it. It became a seed, planted in the soil of consciousness, ready to sprout at the right moment. Thus began the journey. Invisible threads of fate were already tightening, connecting events, people, moments. The book was merely the first key, but behind it lay doors yet to be opened. This was the call of eternity, addressed to a soul ready to listen. And in that call lay the truth. Life is not a straight road, but a labyrinth where every turn is known to the spirit, yet hidden from the mind. The words from the old book found in the shop did not vanish when its pages closed. They settled in the depths of consciousness, like seeds cast into fertile soil. Each morning, with the first rays of sunlight, they surfaced in thoughts, like an ancient melody sounding beyond time. You, walking the path of time, pause. This phrase pulsed in the chest, stirring a vague sense that something profound had already begun. The world around seemed unchanged, yet a subtle crack appeared, through which another light seeped. Everyday life became an arena of unseen signs. In morning coffee, in a stranger's fleeting glance, in the rustle of wind outside the window, everything now carried echoes of those lines. Once, in a crowded street, a voice uttered, "Seek, and you shall find." Those words, so simple, resonated with the book's text, as if someone unseen whispered them directly to the soul. The heart tightened, while the mind tried to dismiss it as coincidence. But the soul knew better. This was no accident, but part of a pattern beginning to emerge. In the evenings, in the quiet of a room, an urge to write arose. The hand reached for a pen, tracing on paper everything that felt significant. A fallen branch by the doorstep, a clock stopping, a stray phrase in conversation. Each sign seemed a thread leading to something greater. These notes became a map where points of events connected into an invisible line. With each day, the sense of something larger grew stronger. It was like a breath from the depths, a call impossible to hear with ears but felt in the bones. The world began to align with this rhythm. Once, in a bookstore, the gaze fell on a cover bearing a symbol like the one from the shop's book. It glowed golden, as if pointing the way. Buying that book was unplanned, yet the hand reached for it, and the heart whispered, "This is part of the path." Another day, in a cafe, the waitress, handing over the bill, smiled and said, "Nothing is by chance." Her words, so ordinary, struck like lightning, leaving a sense that reality was starting to speak the soul's language. These signs were not loud. They did not shout or demand attention. They were quiet, like the whisper of the wind, but their power pierced deeply, awakening a memory sleeping in the heart. It was a feeling of recognition, as if the soul already knew this path, though the mind had yet to grasp it. Writing them down, it felt as if each detail was part of a great mosaic, where nothing was random, only patterns hidden from sight. The inner voice, born from the book, grew louder. It did not instruct but urged to look deeper, to see beyond the surface. Your fate is not a chain of events, but a dance with eternity. These words, rising in silence, made the heart pause. They were a beacon, guiding through the fog. Reality, once so solid, began to dissolve, revealing a space where time flowed differently, and events followed an unseen rhythm. So it continued, day after day. The signs multiplied, growing brighter, yet their meaning remained beyond grasp. They offered no answers but called forward, into the unknown, where truth awaited. This was a path the mind could not choose, but the soul had already embraced. The notes, begun that evening, became more than a diary. They became a sacred text, a map of a soul walking toward its destiny. The days following the encounter with the book began to weave into a delicate fabric of coincidences. Reality, once seemingly chaotic, found a rhythm, as if an invisible conductor had raised a baton. Every event, every sound, every shadow on the pavement now seemed part of an encrypted message. The city streets, steeped in bustle, became a stage where unseen forces placed their signs. This was a dance of synchronicities, where accidents ceased to be accidental. In the morning, on a crowded tram, an old man with deep wrinkles, as if carved by time, looked directly into the eyes and said, "The path of time is not singular." His voice, hoarse and low, echoed the book's lines. He vanished into the crowd, leaving no trace, but his words lingered, like embers glowing in the soul's depths. That same day, a billboard flashed a phrase, "Seek light in the shadows." It belonged to no advertisement, as if it appeared solely to be seen. Clocks, once ticking indifferently, now froze at exactly 11 hours and 11 minutes. This happened not once or twice, morning, evening, in random moments when the gaze fell on the dial. The numbers, like sentinels, guarded an invisible boundary between worlds. They did not shout, but their presence was impossible to ignore. In those moments, the air grew thicker, the silence deeper, as if time paused to offer a chance to listen. On the third day, in a park where leaves rustled under the wind, a child running by dropped a piece of paper. Scrawled in childish handwriting were the words, "The door is already open." Those simple words resonated with the inner voice that had not quieted since the book's discovery. The wind carried the paper away, but its message remained, weaving into a pattern growing ever clearer. This was not chaos, but order, hidden from a superficial glance. Encounters with people changed too. Strangers, whose faces faded from memory, began speaking in phrases that sounded like extensions of the book. A baker, smiling, said, "Everything comes at the right moment." A taxi driver, navigating the evening city, remarked, "Sometimes you just have to trust." These words, spoken offhand, were like notes in a melody the soul already knew by heart. They did not explain, but guided, pointing to a path invisible to the eyes. Each coincidence was like a flash of light in the darkness. They offered no answers, but awakened a sense that everything was part of a grand design. The notes, started earlier, grew with new lines. Every detail, the frozen clock, the old man's words, the child's paper, fell onto the page like a piece of a mosaic. They formed a pattern, not yet understood, but already felt as truth. This was the language of fate, speaking through the world, through people, through silence. The synchronicities multiplied, and with them grew the sense that reality was not solid ground, but a delicate fabric woven from threads of time. Each event, each sign, was a stitch connecting this fabric to something greater. A warmth rose within, as if the soul recognized this rhythm, this dance. The mind tried to resist, calling it all coincidence, but the heart knew. This was an invitation to step further, to where truth waited, hidden behind the veil of the ordinary. Thus continued the movement along an invisible path. Signs, encounters, numbers, all were part of a pattern beginning to emerge. They promised no easy journey, but called forward, into the depths where time and fate intertwined. This was the moment when the soul began to see and the world began to speak. Night fell over the city, wrapping it in a blanket of silence. In this stillness, when the world outside quieted, dreams became gateways to another dimension. They were not mere visions born of a weary mind. They were guiding threads, leading through the labyrinth of time. Each descent into sleep felt like a step into a space where the boundaries of reality dissolved, giving way to the light of truth. In the first dream, a door appeared, old and adorned with carvings, as if crafted by ancient hands. It stood in the midst of a boundless field, where grass whispered under the wind. The door did not open, but a gentle light streamed from beneath, beckoning like a promise. Touching its surface brought warmth to the chest, as if the soul recognized this path. A voice, inaudible yet felt, whispered, "Step forward, and all will change." Awakening left the scent of incense lingering in the air and a sense of peace that defied explanation. The next night, the dream led further. A staircase, stretching into the sky, glowed under the stars. Its stone steps seemed endless, yet each one called to be climbed. With every step, echoes of the book's words resounded. Your path is but a shadow of truth. The wind brushing the face carried the scent of resin and sea, and a feeling grew that this staircase was not just an image, but a bridge between worlds. Awakening came with the sensation that the body still held the warmth of those steps. The dreams grew brighter, more vivid, as if painted by an unseen hand with the colors of eternity. In one, a garden appeared, where trees glowed like stars. A path strewn with petals led to a figure in white, elusive yet familiar. It did not speak, but its presence was a beacon, pointing the way. In this garden, time ceased to exist. Every branch, every leaf was part of a grand pattern. Awakening brought the scent of flowers, lingering long in the room. These visions were not random. They arrived with a rhythm that resonated in the heart, like an ancient drum. Each dream was an invitation, a step on a path the soul already knew. They offered no answers, but left a trace, a sense that everything was connected by invisible threads. The notes, started earlier, grew with new lines: doors, staircases, gardens, light. Each word on paper became part of a map leading to something greater. At times, the dreams brought unease. In one, the sky split open, and through the crack poured light too bright to bear. A voice, deep and commanding, asked, "Are you ready to cross?" The question hung in the air, and awakening came with a racing heart and a sense that time was slipping away. Yet even this unease was part of the journey. It awakened, urging to search further, to look closer at the signs. The dreams became guides, bridges between worlds. They did not explain, but showed that reality was a thin veil, behind which truth lay hidden. Each awakening left the sense that the soul had returned from a distant journey, carrying a fragment of light. The scent of incense, flowers, resin. These were not mere memories of dreams, but proof that worlds touched. So it continued each night. The visions came like waves rolling onto the shore, each washing away a piece of doubt. The soul, led by these dreams, began to see the path more clearly. It was not reason, not logic, but something deeper, a memory living beyond time. The dreams called forward to where truth waited, hidden behind the veil of the ordinary. In the silence, where the mind quiets and the heart opens, a space emerged, like a temple without walls. It was not a place but a state, where time lost its power and the soul became a mirror of eternity. In such moments, when the world around dissolved into soft twilight, the inner gaze turned to the depths. There, in this sacred stillness, a voice arose for the first time, not from the outer world, but from the very heart of existence. The voice was deep, like the echo of a distant star, and commanding, like a wind bending ancient trees. It did not speak, but proclaimed, each word falling like a stone into still water, creating ripples in consciousness. Prepare, for reality will soon change. These words were not a threat, but a warning, infused with sacred power. They vibrated in the chest, stirring a tremor, as if the soul recognized them before birth. The air grew denser, as if space itself thickened, awaiting a response. This voice, called the oracle, did not belong to a human. It was like the breath of the cosmos, the whisper of time that knows all paths. "You stand at the threshold," it said. "The transition is near, but demands courage." Each word settled on the heart like a seal, leaving a mark that could not be erased. It was not guidance, but a call, to see beyond the veil of illusions, to embrace what the mind was not yet ready to grasp. A warmth grew within, but with it, anxiety, like before a leap into the abyss. The world began to align with this voice. Shadows on the walls, once still, now trembled as if touched by unseen light. The sounds of the city, hum of cars, fragments of conversations, seemed distant, as if coming from another world. Time, always so linear, began to waver. Clocks on the wall ticked slower, sometimes backward. This was no mechanical fault, but a sign that reality was becoming malleable, like clay in the hands of an invisible sculptor. In moments of silence, the voice returned, each time clearer. "You are not alone," it said. "The signs you see are threads of fate." These words awakened a memory sleeping in the depths. They recalled the dreams, the book, the synchronicities that had already woven a pattern. The notes, started earlier, grew with new lines. The voice, the warning, the wavering of time. Each word on paper became part of a sacred text leading to truth. The oracle promised no ease. Its tone was stern, not cruel, demanding attention, awakening, readiness. "You were blind, but now you see," it said. Yet seeing is only the first step. These words cut like a blade, exposing the weaknesses of a mind clinging to the familiar. They called for courage, to trust the unseen, to embrace the path the soul had already chosen. Within grew a sense that this voice was not foreign, but part of existence itself, a reflection of truth hidden in the heart. The world became a mirror of these words. In a fleeting reflection in a shop window, an image appeared, not a face, but light flowing like a river. The wind on the street whispered, echoing the oracle's rhythm. Even silence was now alive, filled with presence. This was the moment when reality began to crack at the seams, revealing a glimpse of light from another fate. The soul, led by this voice, felt the transition had already begun. Thus continued the descent into the depths. The oracle's voice became a beacon, guiding through the fog. It did not explain but directed, urging to see the signs always present. This was a call to awaken, to step beyond the known, to where time and fate merged into one. Reality, once solid as stone, began to melt like wax under a flame. Days, which once flowed steadily, now tangled, like threads torn from the fabric of existence. Morning could turn to evening, and moments stretched as if time had chosen to play by its own rules. The world around trembled, like a reflection in water touched by wind, and in this fluidity, a truth hidden behind the familiar began to emerge. One day, in the gray light of dawn, the clock on the city square stopped, unnoticed by all but one attentive gaze. Its hands froze, pointing to 13 o'clock, a number that should not exist. In that moment, the air grew thick, as if infused with ancient smoke, and sounds, birds' songs, passers-by's steps, dissolved into silence. This was not just a moment, but a rift, where time revealed its secret. The heart beat in rhythm with this silence, as if knowing something greater was at stake. Events began to unfold out of order. A conversation started in the morning continued in the evening, but the words echoed a day already past. A letter sent a week ago returned with a date yet to come. These oddities did not frighten, but awakened a sense that reality was a thin veil, behind which lay something else. The notes, started earlier, grew with new lines, frozen clocks, inverted dates, words sounding out of time. Each line was an anchor, holding fast in this fluid world. One day, at a crossroads where streams of people flowed like rivers, a sign caught the eye. Time is a choice. It appeared from nowhere, as if written for one heart alone. In that moment, a passerby, whose face was instantly forgotten, dropped a book that opened to a page reading, "You have been here before." Those words, like lightning, pierced consciousness, stirring a sense that this moment had already been lived. Not the mind, but the soul recognized it, like an old song sung in another life. The distortions of time grew more apparent. The sunlight seemed different, too bright or dim, like before a storm. The sound of footsteps on the pavement echoed, as if they resounded not only here, but elsewhere. In such moments, it felt as if the world were a mirror, reflecting multiple realities at once. The soul, guided by an inner rhythm, began to see these reflections, to sense them as possible paths. These changes were not chaos. They were part of a pattern growing clearer. Each glitch in time, each inverted moment, was a thread woven into the fabric of fate. The notes on paper became a chronicle of transition, where every detail, time's pause, strange words, shifting light, pointed to approaching change. This was not an end, but a beginning, a moment when reality became malleable, ready to take a new form. Within grew a sense that time was not a chain of events, but a river, flowing in all directions. The soul, awakened by signs, began to see this river, to feel its current. The mind tried to cling to old landmarks, but they dissolved like sand in water. This was the moment to trust not the eyes, but the heart, which already knew the way. Reality, once so familiar, was now merely a door leading to another. Thus continued the descent into fluidity. Time, once linear, became liquid, like molten metal. It no longer obeyed clocks, but responded to an inner rhythm, to the voice sounding in the depths. This was a call to transition, to embrace a new fate already beginning to emerge. On one evening, as the city drowned in the gold of sunset, a silence fell, deep as a boundless ocean. It was not mere absence of sound. It was a space where the world held its breath, waiting. In this silence, like in a sacred temple, a call arose, inaudible to the ears but piercing through all being. It was born in the chest, like a warm flame, and spread, as if a river returning to its source. This was the moment when the soul heard a voice calling it home. The silence was not empty. It pulsed, filled with a presence that could not be seen, but could be felt. In this stillness, an image emerged, two roads diverging in different directions. One was wide, lit by familiar light, but cold as marble. The other, narrow and dark, led into the unknown, yet radiated warmth, as if it breathed. The heart knew that the choice between them would shape all that followed. This image was not a dream, but a vision, born in the depths of consciousness. It appeared like a painting drawn with light, each contour carrying meaning. The roads were not just before the eyes. They were paths of fate, threads leading through the labyrinth of time. The wide road beckoned with the familiar, but the soul yearned for the narrow one, where each step promised a meeting with truth. This was a sign, revealed in silence, like a beacon in the night. The outer world became a mirror of the inner. The wind brushing the face whispered, "Go where the heart leads." A leaf falling from a tree spun in the air, tracing a spiral, as if a symbol of eternal return. Even shadows on the ground formed patterns, reminiscent of the book's lines from the shop. Everything became part of a message, unreadable by the mind, but felt by the soul. The notes, started earlier, grew with new lines. Two roads, warmth in the chest, the leaf spiral, each detail fell onto paper, like part of a sacred text. They did not explain but pointed to a choice drawing near. The silence in which the sign arose was not just a pause. It was a space where time and fate touched. Within grew a sense that this moment was a turning point, where reality was ready to shift. This call, born in silence, was stern but not cruel. It demanded not submission, but courage, the resolve to trust what lay beyond the mind. "You know the way," it whispered, "but will you step forward?" These words, unspoken yet felt, cut like a blade, exposing fear of the unknown. But with fear came certainty that the soul had already chosen before the mind could grasp it. The world grew softer, more pliable. The sunset's light, pouring over the streets, seemed alive, like breath. Sounds, footsteps, rustling leaves, the city's distant hum, blended into a melody guiding forward. This was the moment when reality began to dissolve, opening space for something new. The soul, awakened by this sign, felt the choice was already made, and now only a step remained. Thus continued the movement through silence. It became a guide, leading to a threshold where fate awaited its hour. The sign, revealed in this moment, was not just an image but a key, unlocking the door to another reality. This was a call the soul heard, and a path it already knew. The moment of choice arrived like dawn, needing no permission from the night. The inner call, born in silence, grew louder, becoming a pulse that led forward. It was not reason, but the heart that knew where to go. The narrow road, dark and warm, beckoned like an ancient forest hiding secrets. A step toward it changed everything. The air grew denser, as if the fabric of existence tightened, ready to tear. With the first step, the world trembled. The sunlight beyond the horizon turned different, not golden, but silver, like moonlight at noon. Sounds, once familiar, rustling leaves, the distant hum of the city, now came muted as if from underwater. Each breath filled the chest with a sense that reality had transformed. This was not just a step, but a crossing. A moment when the soul stepped over a threshold with no way back. The road, chosen by the heart, led through a space where familiar landmarks vanished. Streets, once known, curved differently. Houses stood at angles unseen by the eyes. People passing by seemed like shadows, their voices echoing from another time. Yet in this strange world, there was warmth, as if an unseen fire burned within. The soul, guided by this warmth, felt at home, even if the mind could not grasp where that was. The wind brushing the face carried a scent not of this world, a blend of resin, sea, and something ancient as the stars. It whispered, "You are already here." These words, unspoken yet felt, were like a key unlocking a new reality. In that moment, the notes, started earlier, grew with new lines. Silver light, curving streets, the wind's whisper. Each detail was part of a pattern, now clearer, like a map leading to truth. The crossing was not easy. Reality, now malleable, resisted, like a river reluctant to change its course. At times, it felt as if the old world tried to pull back. Shadows of the past flickered at the edges of vision. Voices called to stay. But the warmth in the chest, born of the choice, was stronger. It led forward, like a beacon guiding through a storm. The soul knew this step was inevitable, predestined before the journey began. In one moment, on a deserted street where lantern light trembled like stars, an image appeared, a circle glowing in the air. It was not a vision, but a symbol, instantly recognized by the soul. The circle pulsed, like the heart of the world, and at its center burned a truth. All is connected. All is one. This was a sign that the crossing was complete, that the new reality had embraced the one who dared to step. The notes on paper captured this image, becoming part of a chronicle where each line was a step toward destiny. The world now breathed differently. Every sound, every ray of light, was part of a new pattern. People met along the way smiled, but their smiles carried a different meaning, as if they knew of the crossing. Streets, houses, sky, all became part of a dance where time and fate wove together. This was not an end, but a beginning, a moment when the soul stepped into a new timeline. Thus ended the step across the threshold. The road, chosen by the heart, led to a world where all was possible. It was not reason that guided, but the spirit, which already knew this path. The crossing, begun in silence, had now become a reality where every moment was infused with the light of truth. The silver light that replaced the sun's gold illuminated a world both familiar and alien. Streets, so ordinary yesterday, now curved like rivers flowing in a different direction. Houses, standing for centuries, seemed slightly shifted, as if built from another architect's plans. The air was infused with a new scent, not resin or sea, but something delicate, like the breath of stars. This was not the old world, but its reflection, woven from the threads of a different fate. People met along the way moved differently. Their steps were lighter, their gazes deeper, as if they saw not just the surface, but the essence. One passerby, whose face faded from memory, paused and said, "You've come to where time speaks." His words, spoken without reason, resonated in the chest, like an echo of the oracle's voice. They did not explain, but confirmed. This was another timeline, where signs rang louder. The sky above the city was clear, yet stars, visible even by day, twinkled like beacons. They formed patterns the soul recognized, though the mind could not decipher them. The wind, roaming the streets, carried fragments of phrases, as if the world itself whispered its secrets. "It has already begun," came from the rustle of leaves. These words, woven into the fabric of reality, were part of a new pattern, where every moment brimmed with meaning. The notes, begun in the old world, continued to grow. New lines described shifted houses, daytime stars, words of strangers. Each detail fell onto paper, like a piece of a mosaic taking shape. This was not just a chronicle, but a sacred text, reflecting a transition to a reality where time flowed differently. The soul, guided by these signs, felt it had not merely entered this world, but become part of it. In this world, everything was alive. Trees lining the path seemed like sentinels, their branches swaying in a dance. Stones on the pavement held memories of steps from other times. Even shadows cast by buildings formed symbols, reminiscent of the book's lines from the shop. This was a world where everything spoke, not in words, but in a rhythm that resonated in the heart. At times, it felt as if the old world still tugged back. The wind carried a distant hum, reminiscent of the past, but it quickly faded. The new world was stronger, its light piercing everything, making the past forgotten. The soul, having stepped onto this path, could not return. It knew this world was not an accident, but a destiny chosen before the first step. One moment, in a square where shadows drew circles, brought a new sign. An old man on a bench traced a spiral in the air and said, "You see because you chose." His words, like a key, unlocked understanding. This world was not just another reality, but a reflection of a choice made by the heart. The notes captured this moment, becoming part of a map where each line led to the depth of truth. Thus began life in the new world. It was not the end of the journey, but a beginning, where each step opened new horizons. The soul, awakened by signs, felt that time here was not a chain, but a dance, where every moment was part of a grand pattern. This was a world where fate spoke and the soul listened. In the new world, where stars shone by day and time flowed like a river, a silence arose, unlike any before. It was not emptiness, but fullness, where every breath was infused with light. The soul, having stepped into this reality, felt a peace, as if returning to a place it had always known. Within, there were no questions, only certainty that every step, every sign led to this moment. This was the moment of acceptance, not of the mind, but of the spirit, already living this fate. The streets of the new world breathed a rhythm that resonated in the heart. Houses, slightly shifted as if drawn by another artist, stood like guardians of eternity. People passing by carried knowledge in their gazes, as if they too were part of this pattern. Their words, dropped casually, sounded like ancient hymns. "You are here because you chose." These phrases, dissolving in the air, became part of a melody guiding forward. The sky, strewn with stars, seemed alive. It did not merely hang overhead, but breathed, like an ocean where worlds swam. The wind brushing the face carried a scent, elusive yet familiar, like a memory of the dawn of time. In this world, everything was familiar, yet subtly different, as if reality reflected in the mirror of eternity. The soul, guided by this light, knew it was not just a visitor, but part of this world. The notes, begun in the old reality, closed with final lines. Daytime stars, people's words, the world's rhythm, each detail fell onto paper like a final chord. This was not a diary, but a sacred chronicle, where every sign, every step, reflected the path to truth. They did not reveal what lay ahead, but gave certainty. All that was needed was already in the heart. The soul, having embraced this path, was ready to move forward. In this world, there was no fear. Even the unknown beyond the horizon did not frighten, but beckoned, like the light of a distant star. Every moment brimmed with meaning, every sound was part of a great dance. The soul, awakened by signs, dreams, and the oracle's voice, now saw clearly. Fate was not a chain of events, but a spiral, leading to the center of existence. This center was not somewhere outside, but within, in the heart's depths. One moment, on a deserted path where stars reflected in puddles, brought the final sign. A stone by the roadside, etched with symbols like those in the shop's book, read, "You always knew." These words, carved by time, were like a seal, confirming the path begun in silence was complete. The soul, having embraced this world, was now free of doubt. Thus began a new life. There was no need to know what lay ahead, for every step was part of a pattern the soul already knew. This was not an end, but an eternal beginning, where time and fate merged into one. The soul, awakened by this journey, walked forward, guided by the light burning within.